Welcome to this episode of CynSpeaks. Thank you so much for joining. In this episode, we're going to talk about ego. We're going to define the ego to help you better understand what I am referring to when I talk about ego in upcoming episodes. So for the topics in January, ego is going to come up a lot. We're going to dig in really deep to ego, what it means, and how it applies to different areas of your life. So I want to make sure that the understanding is completely calibrated as far as what I mean when I say ego. Some of you that know me may know that I was working on my PhD in psychology, so I dug into this topic pretty deep. I've taken a break from that for now to do some creating for you guys, but my understanding of the topic ego is pretty good. So I want to kind of let you know what I'm referring to when I say ego. So my concept of ego comes from a few different perspectives, specifically Freud. He is one of my favorite theorists in the world of psychology and philosophy of humans and behavior. And some of his theories are a little out there, but most of his understandings and explanations are very mainstream and easy to understand. So his theory of ego is comprised of, we'll say, like 3 components. So you have your ego, which is almost like an umbrella that is made up of your superego and your id. id. So your superego, the easiest way to kind of understand the superego and what that really means is your parental voice. So that thing that guides your ethics and your morals and your values, that thing that makes you think before you do, that is kind of an idea of what your superego is. Your id is your child voice, the first person, I perspective, me. So think of like a 3-year-old in you. And when you're throwing a tantrum and you stomp out of the room and you slam the door, that is your id driving. It could be other parts of your brain, but essentially it's your id. If we're talking about personality, we're talking about ego, there's your superego, which is your parental voice, and your id, which is your child voice. Neither one is more important than the other. Neither one is better than the other, but it's important that we recognize that we are composed of both. We have both. Our ego is made up of both. So we are not simple creatures. We are complicated. Humans are complicated. We have thought processes that other creatures don't have. So we go through a little more than other creatures don't go through. So pretty much it's okay to not fully understand where your ego is or be happy with that. Like sometimes you can be in a situation that makes you act out of ego and your actions may not be so great. It's okay. It is what it is. We are here on this planet to learn and to grow, and I am here to hopefully help you through that just a little bit. So what I want you to think of throughout this week or the next couple of days is think about your ego in thought and behavior. So think about the way that your ego influences what you think, which influences what you do. For example, if somebody tests you in some way, say you're in the grocery store and somebody rams their cart into you, boom. And you have this feeling that they didn't do it by accident. You have this feeling that they did this on purpose for whatever reason, right? You want to make sure that you're observing that thought. There may be validity to your thought. Maybe they didn't do it by accident, but maybe they did. So observing your thoughts and deciding, okay, is this my ego that's going to help me, right? Or am I thinking with my heart, which is a completely another concept that we'll talk about soon. But we want to see if this is ego. And just start to identify that in your daily walk, in your daily practice, because as you start to identify that, you may start to uncover many things. You'll start to uncover the root of some of your traumas. If certain things are triggers for you, you might want to investigate that through your meditations and see why that's a trigger for you. Something like running into somebody in the grocery store with a cart is an accident, and it could totally happen by accident. But if that triggers you to get upset or angry or hurt or anything extreme, any feelings that wouldn't necessarily align with an accident like that, you want to investigate that. You want to observe that a little bit further. You want to take note of that and kind of look at that in a deeper way, because it will help you learn about you, which is what we're here to do. So that's my challenge. Observe ego in your daily walk, and just observe your thoughts and your actions in alignment to the ego. Try to see the root of where these thoughts and actions are coming from. Are they coming from the child in you? Are they coming from the parent in you? And see how that may help you go through your day a little bit more intently, with better intention, better awareness, which will help you to grow in your walk. Also with ego, it can drive a lot of self-destructive behaviors. So overspending, overeating, over partying, like all of these things could come from parts of our ego that are trying to be filled through behaviors that may be destructive. And those may usually actually go back to our childhood and voids that we're trying to fill from our childhood. Things like abandonment, things like resentment of our parents, things like unresolved emotional trauma, just in any way. Those could be things that we are hurting ourselves as adults, trying to fix the things and heal the things that happened to us as children. So as you recognize these things, I invite you to forgive yourself if you're starting to realize, like, holy moly, I've been engaging in some behaviors that aren't necessarily healthy for me or good for me or helping me. It's okay. It's totally okay. We all have done it. We are all growing. We are all learning. And you have to forgive yourself as you're learning and growing. So at this point, like, don't try to fix it all. Just try to take note of it. Just try to observe it and see if there's validity in it connecting with a childhood issue, a childhood trauma, childhood pain. And that may not be something that you can figure out on your own. A therapist or a counselor or a coach or a spirit guide, whatever it may be, may need to help you. But if you just start identifying some of these triggers and some of these thoughts and behaviors that are connected to the ego and the parent in you or the child in you, you can start to decipher kind of a direction for your healing and your growth. And I am going to dig in so deep to ego. We're going to dig really deep, probably deeper than is necessary. But I feel like the more you're equipped with, the more you can push down your path and improve on a daily basis and heal. Like, that's really the main goal of this lifetime, is to heal from this life's trauma, from everything you've been through, and heal the world. Hopefully you can get to a point where you're in a space where maybe you're not perfectly healed, but maybe you're ready to start serving and healing the world, which is what it's all about. So I send this episode to you in love, like so strongly in love. Like, I want you to remember that I'm sending this to you in love. Don't get too hard on yourself. We will work through all of the things that you find. If you do find that you need somebody to hold space for you, I encourage you to talk to somebody, a friend, a sister. I have plenty of soul sisters that I love, and they hold space for me all the time. A therapist. Therapists are amazing. Most companies will provide like free therapy for you too, which is really cool. And even if you just use the therapist as a tool to hold space for you, that is their job, that is their purpose, and it is okay. So I encourage you to just kind of be forgiving and calm as you walk through and start to recognize ego showing up in your daily life. Until next time. Welcome to this episode of CynSpeaks. Thank you so much for joining. In this episode, we're going to talk about ego. We're going to define the ego to help you better understand what I am referring to when I talk about ego in upcoming episodes. So for the topics in January, ego is going to come up a lot. We're going to dig in really deep to ego, what it means, and how it applies to different areas of your life. So I want to make sure that the understanding is completely calibrated as far as what I mean when I say ego. Some of you that know me may know that I was working on my PhD in psychology. So I dug into this topic